Here's the question. Why have so many people quit Classic WoW? MetaGoblin uploaded this video 5 hours ago. Here's what I want to see. Why have so many people quit Classic WoW? Let's see what's up.
The other day, I put up a poll asking my audience which version of Classic WoW they're playing. The results were quite surprising, to say the least. It turns out the top choice was that people are not playing Classic.
Okay, listen, I think this little poll, this survey he conducted here, I think it has some merit. You can see in the top left, almost 10,000 people responded. 9,600. And, listen to me, MetaGoblin has spent the last 8 years, building a Classic WoW YouTube channel. Okay, so he's got Classic WoW players. So I trust the people that are voting. It's the right demographic. And so, look at that, dude. Most people aren't even playing. 33% Classic Cata. 15% Season of Discovery. 12% Classic Era. That's crazy that's that close. And then 40% are not even playing WoW.
Classic
Can you
WoW
believe that?
At all. A whopping 40% of people said they've stepped away from the game entirely. 33 are playing Cataclysm Classic, 15 are playing Season of Discovery, and just 12 are still on Classic Era. So yes, we're seeing a huge population drop. But it's not exactly shocking. We always knew that by the time Cata Classic came around, interest in Classic WoW would wane. Cata isn't a cup of tea for many Classic WoW players. The ethos of a Classic WoW player is simple.
Well, I think what has happened is, like, Classic Cata has come out. Interest in Cata has gone down. Of course, Cata is the least popular version of Classic WoW so far. We've had 4 different versions now, Vanilla, TBC, Wrath, Cata. But what have you seen over the last couple months? People want Vanilla. People are screaming from the rooftops, Blizzard, give us no changes Vanilla circa 2019. We want it again. We want that. People want that, and you see people talking about it.
Log in, slay some dragons with your friends, have a few beers, and score some loot. Rinse and repeat next week. Cataclysm still offers that experience, but the content isn't as casual friendly as it used to be, especially when you compare the heroic difficulties to older hard modes. Also, a significant chunk of the original Classic audience also love the old school leveling zones, rich with exploration and non-linear quest lines, but with Cataclysm's revamp of Azeroth, that essence is lost for some players. By the way guys, if you're still leveling up your character at all
Rested XP, let's go!
Era, be sure to check out the Rested XP add-on, the fastest leveling add-on that you can get, created by world record holding speed levelers. You can find the download link to that in the description. When Season of Discovery launched, it drew a staggering number of players, just under 500,000 logs. That's Wrath Classic level engagement. At peak times, you could easily see over 300 group requests on the LFG add-on on the highest population servers. But now SOD only has about half of its original population. Clearly, something went wrong. I've already made a whole video diving into the details, but to sum it up, SOD became everything Classic WoW players despise about retail. The current lineup of Classic WoW products just isn't hitting the mark for most players. Since the beginning of Classic, we've had a hardcore to semi-hardcore player base, much larger than people realise. These are the kind of players who won't cancel a raid night to attend their own child's piano recital. You know, the true heroes of World of Warcraft. Depending on your server, casual guilds are definitely in the minority on Cataclysm Classic, which
SOD is a beta for Classic Plus. That's not how it always was marketed. So we've heard something, a change in rhetoric. There's been a noticeable shift in rhetoric from the Classic WoW dev team over the last couple days. It was maybe 3-4 days ago, the Classic dev team, they made their rounds doing various interviews with several different content creators. And what do you hear from them 9, almost 10 months into Classic Season of Discovery? You hear something, they're saying something now. They've never said this before. They've never explicitly said this. Now they are explicitly saying this. They're saying, okay, that yeah, Classic Season of Discovery is sort of a testing bed. Yeah, it is a testing ground for something maybe that's coming. They've never said stuff like that up until this point. You had community, you had players, people speculating, but they've never come out and said that. And this is my take, of course. Maybe this is expressive of my bias here, but I think that's kind of a copium take from them. I think the reason why they are giving that take now, the Classic devs are saying, oh yeah, listen, the reason why we've made some weird content that hasn't really resonated that deeply with the player base or has been like a just not really a right fit for Classic WoW, don't be too critical of it because Season of Discovery is a testing bed. The reason they're saying that now is a copium defense because SOD is not that popular anymore. Do you guys agree with that? When SOD was super popular in Phase 1 or Phase 2, they weren't talking about how, oh, well, don't be too critical of the bad content because this is a testing ground for something. No, they're only saying that now. They're saying that now that SOD is not really doing that well. To try to, pass off some sort of defense or justification for the negative downhill direction in which SOD has been going.
Which you can easily see by checking out the server discords. And honestly, that's fine. This is exactly what Cataclysm Classic was designed to be, and it stayed true to that vision. If it made Classic Cataclysm easier, it would have alienated its core audience. Over the past 4 years, Classic WoW has cultivated a more hardcore community. Sure, with some exceptions, the game has been too easy for a lot of players, which has sparked a craving for more challenging content. But there's still a significant portion of Classic WoW's audience who prefer a more relaxed raiding experience. Season of Discovery was delivering that until Sunken Temple, which had an end boss more difficult to kill than Donald.
Once again, everyone's got their bias, and I most certainly have mine. This narrative that there's a huge majority or huge portion, maybe not a majority, but a large substantial portion of Classic WoW players over the last 5 years that are just yearning for difficult content. Oh man, I just want difficult content. I don't really think there's that many of those people. Like I'm not sure how large that demographic is, right? I'm not sure that is really the case, that there's this big portion of people that are Classic players that are desperate for harder content. I feel like really if you are someone that does want harder content, you probably go play a different game, right? There's a lot of difficult games. I mean, you can look at retail WoW first and foremost. It is obviously more difficult than Classic WoW in a lot of ways, like and regarding mechanical difficulty. And so I really think that the Classic player base, most people don't really care about difficulty. They're just looking to kind of chill and have fun and relax and have a social experience. And if you are someone that really loves Classic and you do want something more difficult, well, then you have speedrunning. Well, then you have parsing, right? There are things you can do that does... It's like a self-imposed difficulty. And within Classic WoW, there is a really vibrant speedrunning community and parsing community. And so you can impose that difficulty on yourself. And I think most people have been satisfied. Or you can play hardcore, for instance. Yeah, true. It's a different type of difficulty. But Classic players saying, oh man, we need really hard raid content, the super difficult raid progression content. I just don't really think that there are that many people saying that. And I think maybe the lack of success of Cataclysm and the second half of Wrath of the Lich King is emblematic of that, right? What do you see? When raids get hard, people kind of stop playing. You saw this with Ulduar. You saw this with ICC 25-man. You see this with Cataclysm. When raids get a little bit hard, people just kind of stop playing. They lose interest a little bit, right? I think a lot of people don't want to do 3 or 4 weeks or 5 weeks of progression or more, right? I think that's just not really why people play Classic, and that's okay. Not everything has to be about mechanical difficulty. It's okay to just want to relax while playing a video game, right?
No Trump.
No.
This is a major reason why so many people have walked away from Classic WoW. It just doesn't have that same broad appeal as it once did. In a recent interview, Blizzard explained that Season of Discovery was meant to be very experimental. Some things work great and others not so much. I'm almost inclined to give Blizzard a pass on this one. It's important to try new features and see what...
Once again, hold up. They are only saying this. This is something they have never said up until 3 or 4 days ago. They're saying this now that the game is not as popular, right? The game has kind of died. SOD has really gone downhill. There's been a lot of bad decision making. And so now that the game is in a bad state, now they come out and say, well, it was always intended to be experimental. And yeah, we sort of intended to make some controversial changes just to see how they would go. Yeah, okay.
Sticks. The lead developer even mentioned they were hesitant to label SOD as Classic Plus because getting it wrong could have led to major disappointment. Fair enough. There's a lot riding on Classic Plus. It has to be perfect because realistically it is the future of Classic WoW. Mr. Pandaria Classic, that's not
true.
the future. That's exactly what the most of a Classic audience don't want. But some of the features they added to Season of Discovery were doomed from the start. Like a Take That member trying to start a solo career.
This is something to keep in mind. Okay, all of us want Classic Plus to be good. We hope, we yearn for Classic Plus. Oh man, and I'm sure all of us have had these, internal monologues. Oh, it'd be so cool if they did this or that. We've all had these thoughts, right? Oh man, I really wish they had that or this, whatever. We want it. The Classic dev team needs it. The Classic dev team, those developers, they are human beings with jobs, with bills to pay. They've got to put food on the table, and they've got to provide in order to keep those jobs, okay? If the Classic dev team, we want it, they need to have a good, successful, thriving Classic Plus. Otherwise, they are at risk of losing their jobs. Blizzard has been known to, fire people. Blizzard fires people that they think they don't need anymore. And so this is the sort of stark reality for the Classic devs. If they don't provide, in all likelihood, their job is kind of on the line. They really need to figure it out.
When your name isn't Robbie Williams. Nightmare incursions, overcomplicating classes with too many abilities, and making the raids excessively difficult, these were brainless decisions that could only be made from developers that really don't get Classic WoW. Hopefully, after losing over 1 million subscribers, they finally learned that lesson. But this is what concerns me about the Classic dev team. Do they truly understand Classic WoW?
I don't think so. I don't think so. If you're facing a dartboard and you put a blindfold on and you just start throwing darts, sometimes you might get it on the board. Sometimes you might even get a bullseye if you just keep on throwing darts. But more often than not, you're going to miss the board. You're not going to have success. And I really do. After seeing the last 10 months of Season of Discovery unfold, all of the it's like there have been so many decisions in SOD where it's like, what the hell were you thinking, right? What in the hell were you thinking? And we could sit here and list them off. You guys all know what we're talking about, so I'm not going to go down that path again. But it's just like, listen, anyone with half a brain would not have needed to conduct the incursion experiment, for instance. That's an experiment that did not need to be conducted. The fact that you thought that experiment needed to be conducted is really emblematic of the fact that you don't really understand why people like Classic WoW, okay?
They play enough to understand what players want. Are they familiar with other old school MMOs and why their communities remain loyal even when their games are so different from modern MMOs like Retail WoW? Do they get why Retail WoW isn't growing, hasn't for years and probably never will? Can they pass the old school MMO vibe check? Honestly, I think before anyone can join the Classic WoW dev team, they should have to prove that they've logged at least 10 days playtime on their account in Classic. That should be a minimum requirement. It's painfully clear that some members of the Classic WoW dev team are just going through the motions, with very little passion or interest in Classic. The features introduced in Season of Discovery make it obvious that whoever is calling the shots is completely out of touch with what the Classic WoW audience actually wants.
I think so.
Unfortunately, this is the harsh reality of game development. When a new studio is trying to make a name for itself, they're driven by determination and passion, but once a company has been established for a few years, that fire often fades.
You know what I like about MetaGoblin? Okay, MetaGoblin, he doesn't work... By the way, there's nothing wrong with working and communicating with Blizzard. MetaGoblin doesn't do that, though. MetaGoblin is not having Blizzard interviews. MetaGoblin is not... He's not, like, in the Blizzard content creator clique, okay? Neither am I, by the way. I don't know why. Can you imagine why? I don't know why. But anyway, not clicked in. And so what does that mean? That means... if you're not clicked in, if you're on the outside, you can be a little bit more critical. It's like, well, they already don't like me. They already don't like him. So you can really freely speak your mind, because I think there's maybe other people that it's like, well, I can't be too critical of the game because I need to maintain this relationship. Okay? I need to make sure I get the next interview or whatever. And you kind of have to bite your tongue a little bit.
Every game developer seems to have their peak.
My tongue is out of my
mouth.
Blizzard
with Wrath of the Lich King, Bethesda with Skyrim, CD Projekt Red with The Witcher 3, and then it's just all downhill from there. And bringing in new talent won't necessarily fix this, because the current climate of the video game industry is one where people are more likely to leave it than to join it. When you consider the future of Classic Plus is in the hands of Blizzard and the current Classic WoW dev team, it's hard to not feel uneasy, especially with the news that Activision Blizzard, Microsoft, or whatever the hell this corporate monstrosity they're called now, is unionizing. Now, I'm not against worker unions. Blizzard is probably the perfect example of a company that needs one. But the downside is that bad developers who have no idea what they're doing might end up sticking around longer than they really should. A lot of Classic players are now left with nothing to play, and let's not forget that Season of Discovery is just getting started. It still has to go through every single phase of raid releases at endgame, which is going to take at least a year. So what are Classic players supposed to do for a whole year without a solid MMO to dive into? Sure, people will always come back to WoW, but Blizzard risks losing chunks of their subscriber base to other MMOs in the meantime.
Okay. I want to pause the video there. It's a great video because there's something we need to talk about, and that's a great transition to talk about this. I'm going to link that video in the chat. Thank you, MetaGoblin. We got new Season of Discovery raid Warcraft log participation numbers this morning. So now we have the stats. Okay, how many people have been participating in the Molten Core launch? So let's keep in mind, how has Phase 4 of Season of Discovery unfolded. It was the first week, there were no raids, so no Warcraft logs. The next week, it was world bosses, so, you know, a couple Warcraft logs, maybe people are logging world bosses. Now we have had one full week of Molten Core, okay? So we have some good data. And let's see how many people did that, and there it is. Okay, so we have 75,000 characters on Warcraft logs, which is about 1/8, 1/7 maybe, I'm not sure, of the peak of Phase 1, okay? And so, let's be fair here. I want to look at Phase 1, 2, 3. With Phase 1, 2, 3, you had, let's call it 3 weeks of growth, okay? So from the first week of raiding, what followed was 2 or 3 weeks of growth, right? So let's say that this goes up. This might hit 100K. Phase 1 peak was 500K. This might hit 100 at 75 now, because we probably will have 2 or 3 weeks of growth following this, so just small, slight growth. And where's that growth coming from? Generally, people getting level 60 on all of their alts, and maybe it's not more people raiding, it's the same people raiding on more characters. Okay, so I think it will go up a little bit, and then I think it will go down. And by the way, this is gonna, like, let me ask you this: will the first week of Phase 5, this is Blackwing Layer and whatever, will the first week of Phase 5 have this many people? 75K characters? No, it will not. And so it's all, you're gonna have a couple more weeks of growth, and then a big decline. And then Phase 5 comes out, couple weeks of growth, but not as big as it is now, and a couple weeks of decline. And so this, I want to harken back to a point that I've made in the past, where, once again, my opinion here, not a lot of people are playing SOD. Blizzard still has to go through Blackwing Layer. Let's say they don't even make any new raids, okay? They've got to do Blackwing Layer. They've got to do ZG, AQ20, AQ40, Naxxramas. So they've got another 3 phases at minimum, maybe 4 in front of them, and every phase will have fewer and fewer and fewer people playing it. This is my speculation. And by the way, that's assuming they don't have any new raids. My speculation is that Blizzard is looking at these numbers, they are not satisfied with these numbers, and it's going to be very, very hard for them to justify investing a lot of developer time into content, into creating content that not many people are participating in. Okay? So in Season of Discovery here, in the next year, are we going to get new zones? Are we going to get any really exciting, just crazy, awesome new content in Season of Discovery as we go forward? I don't really think so, because they would be designing that content for pretty much no one. And that's really hard to justify spending dev time on content that they kind of know no one is really going to participate in, right? And so I think what happens going forward with Season of Discovery is it just kind of slowly dies and pitters out. It pitter-patters out over the next 12 months, and Blizzard does not spend a lot of time creating really exciting new revolutionary content because it's like, who are they making the content for? Not a lot of people. And by the way, what I'm saying here is not unfounded, because this is exactly what happened in Season of Mastery. This is sort of like Season of Mastery timeline take 2 here. When Season of Mastery came out, you'll notice the most fundamental, the largest raid changes happen in Molten Core. They changed Molten Core a lot. And then by the time Naxxramas came out, the raid almost didn't change at all. And every raid between Molten Core and Naxxramas changed less and less and less. That means the developers invested less and less and less time in every single raid after Molten Core because they saw the raid participation numbers were going down and down and down. And so let's talk about Season of Mastery Naxxramas. It's like, does it make sense to spend 3 months of dev time changing and tweaking and modifying Naxxramas when only like 20 guilds are going to do it, or less? I don't even know. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And then this ties into what's been making the rounds. What have we been talking about over the last 4 or 5 days? Classic Plus. There's a Classic Plus survey that's going around right now, and everybody's talking about it. All the YouTubers, all the streamers, you guys are talking about it in your Discord servers. There's a Classic Plus survey. Blizzard is probing the community. Hey, what do you think about Classic Plus? Why are they doing that now? Why are they doing that now as opposed to 5-6 months ago? They're doing it now because SOD is dead. So this means Blizzard is already thinking about the next thing. This is the fact that we have the Classic Plus survey making its rounds right now. It's sort of a tacit admission. The implication here is that Blizzard is already thinking about what comes next. Their eye is not exclusively on SOD anymore. Now they maybe have one eye on SOD and one eye on Classic Plus. And so who knows what's going to happen there? Who knows? But anyway, so I guess I am kind of dooming on SOD, but I've been following this stuff pretty closely, and I think it's kind of hard not to doom on it. So we'll see how it goes.